You know how I mentioned a few episodes ago that we could probably be handling our errors a little more elegantly? Let's go ahead and do that in this episode. So, as I'm showing right here, we have an invalid credentials error on our login page. Or if I go to the sign up page and I try to sign up as an existing user, like Jane Doe, yeah, we get a user already exists error, but if we were to look in our code base, we'd see that we're kind of redundantly placing this error message around our application, and it's just not very graceful how we're doing this currently. So what I propose is that we kind of keep the logic to display our error message in one place, and that'll be in our main app file. And in anywhere we need to generate an error message or any sort of user-facing notification, we can just use our handy Aurelia Event Aggregator to publish that information. So what I propose we use is this Toastr, very simple JavaScript library that can be used alongside. It depends on jQuery, but we're already using that with Bootstrap 4. So what we can do is install Toastr, and we'll get these nice toast pop-up notifications when anything needs to be communicated to the user. So we will see exactly how that looks. What we should do is go to our command line, and let's install. So we'll use au install Toastr, and let's just save that. Make sure that saves to our package.json file. And this is something kind of cool that happens when we install this dependency is as AU's kind of importing this, it says, oh, I've noticed there's two CSS files. Do you want to include any of these as well for reference in the application, which is really handy because Toastr indeed does have some styling that we do want to include. So I will say yes. And there's no need to bring in the full Toastr. We could just use the minified version. So we'll hit 2 here and say bring in the minified Toastr. Okay, so if we go to our Aurelia JSON configuration file and scroll down to where that was imported, which will be at the end of our dependencies section, we can see what happened is it brought in this resource here, which is really handy. So we will be using that. One other piece we want to do, and I know the Aurelia core team is working currently on kind of mapping dependencies, but we also want to indicate that there is the jQuery dependency here. So we have to say dependencies, and much like we've done in previous sections, we can list an array of dependencies. In this case, it is simply jQuery. Great, and that's all the configuration we need to do to import the Toastr package. So what I can do now is open my source folder, go to app.js and app.html. So we'll do the app component. So what we need to do is import everything as Toastr, and this will allow me to, if you're not familiar with the Toastr library, this will allow me to access the different types of alerts that can be generated, and you'll see in a moment how that works from Toastr. Okay, awesome. And so let's just test this out. In my attached lifecycle hook, I'm just going to say Toastr.success, and this is how basically the really basic no configuration use case to display some sort of success case here. So we are using Toastr. One final piece of configuration we need to do is go into our app.html file and make sure that we require the CSS that we are relying on for Toastr. So we can say require from, and it's from the Toastr package. And if we go back to our Aurelia JSON, we can actually see, I mean, the Aurelia installation kind of built out this path for us. It's build/toastr.min.css. So here we go. Save that. And we can go now to our command line, and let's make sure that we now bundle our app with our additional dependencies. And I'll go to the browser and give it a refresh. And look at this in the upper right hand corner. We are using Toastr. So yeah, we get this nice pop-up alert that kind of fades away after a little bit of time. So you can imagine if some action happens in the system, we can go ahead and make something appear in the upper right hand corner, perhaps a success message like that, perhaps an error message or some informational message. But yeah, that's much better than trying to kind of add additional error tags throughout the application. And you'll see this with a lot of sites these days. This is a pretty common way to handle messaging to the user. So that's great. So what I propose we do now that we know it's working is let's actually create a subscription so we can subscribe to something that we are going to set up in a little bit. And I'll put it at the end of the attached lifecycle hook. And let's just create a Toast subscription. And that'll equal this dot event aggregator, because we already have our event aggregator, a dot subscribe. And for now, we can just say we're subscribing to Toast, and we'll get Toast from it. And perhaps we'll just dump this here. So instead of saying we are using Toast as our message, maybe we will say the past Toast that we are getting here. Maybe we'll just say, all right, Toast. And we can test this out, because what we can do is really just publish to this event aggregator here. So we can say this dot publish, or sorry, this dot event aggregator dot publish, and we're going to publish to Toast. And what are we going to publish? Well, testing event aggregator. So again, we'll use our event aggregator. We are as soon as this is attached, we are going to publish a toast saying this we're testing the event aggregator. And since we're already subscribing here, then we are just going to have a success message that has our toast. Let's go back to our application, give it a refresh. Oh, there we go. We get our information that we're testing our event aggregator. Fantastic. But so now that we think about it, that's a success message. But what if we want a failure message as well? Well, we don't necessarily want to have some sort of different subscription. We would prefer to keep it all in the same place. So perhaps we can find a way to not actually hard code this success here, but maybe Toast will actually be an object. And instead of success, we can say Toastr, and then we'll do toast.type and toast.message. So yeah, this is totally allowed. And so instead of passing just a string here, we can pass an object and say, all right, so this object, the type will be success, and the message will be this was successful. So I'll save that, go back to the application, and we can already see it in the upper right hand corner. This was successful. But if I go back and change the type to error and say this was unsuccessful, I can save that and go back to the application. This was unsuccessful, so it's red. It looks like an error. Perfect. So now we've kind of abstracted that logic, and now we don't need more than one subscription here. So this is great. So what we can basically do at this point is, instead of having this in the attached lifecycle hook of our app.js, we can put this wherever there's an actual chance to publish some information to the user. So I'm going to cut that. And we already see down here that in our sidebar update, we have a couple instances where we might want to publish errors. So let's go ahead and just paste that logic here. And our message can be error.message here. And same deal below. It'll be error.message. Again, with our logout functionality, error.message. And also perhaps with logout, it wouldn't be the worst idea to tell the user that they were successfully logged out. So perhaps we'll do a little toast here that's a success. and the message will be you have successfully logged out. So let's just give that a try. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to log in as Jane Doe. Here I am. And now I'll just click log out. And there we go. I get a notification that I have successfully logged out, which is good feedback for a user. That's a sort of action that could be something where feedback is desired. There's all sorts of things that we could use this for, but so I propose that we start going through our different files that we have and kind of clean all this up now. And as we go through this, and it's going to be, it could be a little bit painful to do so, which is just makes it even more poignant to think about how we could have maybe considered handling errors in the first place when we started our project, so that we now don't have to go back and kind of figure out all the places where we might need to refactor the error functionality. One last thing I do want to do in this app.js is it's good practice to on detached to dispose of our event aggregator subscription. So I'll just add toast subscription.dispose here, and great, that'll be the right way to handle it. Great. So what I do want to do in our app.html file is we are no longer going to use this this error message here, so I can just take this code out, and that'll actually make it a little nicer. Okay, and so let's start going through our files. So I'm just going to start at the top of the source folder, and we can look in our auth file. So auth, we can do login. Let's open our login component. We know we have this error message display here. We know we want to get rid of that in our login.html, and that cleans things up quite nicely. In our login.js here, we see that we have, well, in our activate, we're setting this .error. We don't actually need this .error anymore, which is great. We can get rid of that. We don't need to do that in the login as well. And so when we catch the error here, we can just use our event aggregator and publish the toast and this error message. So that's actually just the same thing. Awesome. So we've handled that in our login, and let's go back to the application and try that out. So of course our login error is going to be when we, try to log in as someone who doesn't exist. Click login, and here we go in the upper right, invalid credentials. That's exactly what we want to happen. So that's great feedback for our user, and we don't have to deal with all this redundant HTML. So that's really cool. Let's go ahead and do this as well for our signup component. I'll open the HTML and the JS, delete this error display from before. In our signup.js, again, we don't need to default our error to null. And within our catch of our auth service signup, we can just publish the error. Again, try that in our application. And this, of course, will give you an error if you try to sign up as someone who exists already, like Jane Doe. Click sign up. This user already exists. Great. So let's keep moving forward. We do not need to look in our common folder because we know that just has our services. There's nothing to be displayed to the user there. Also with our pipeline steps, that doesn't have anything to display to the user. The posts folder will certainly have some stuff to display to the user. So let's do this archive view component. So right now we are actually using this post list custom element, and we're binding an error to it. So we're going to both want to eliminate this error bind. And so what I'll do first is actually dive into our custom elements folder and just fix the custom element to not even include that error. So let's do that first. Let's go to our resources folder and our elements folder. So if we look at our elements, we know that our post list custom element is actually just this HTML only custom element. So that's kind of a little easier. We can just delete from bindable, we can delete the error here, and within the HTML we can delete this error div that's being displayed to the user, and that effectively gets rid of it from the custom element. If I go back to my archive HTML, I can then take the error bind out. Again, reinforcing this is a bit of a painful process if you don't think about error handling up front, so I would certainly encourage you to do so. We can do our exercise of importing the event aggregator for the view model for archive view from Aurelia Event Aggregator. And again, use dependency injection to pull that in. Make sure we set it in our constructor. And then, of course, when we have our error here, we actually say this.ea.publish. And again, we are publishing to Toast. And we will publish this object, which has a type of error and a message of error.message. Okay, so that's great. So I believe that's everything we need for the archive view. And we can do the same sort of thing for the tag view while I'm thinking about it. So let's open up that tag view HTML and tag view.js. And the reason I thought about it was just because it's the same sort of thing. It uses the same view. So we'll delete the error bind, and in the tag view.js, we will pull in the event aggregator. And of course, we will inject it. Set it in the constructor. And then publish if we have an error. And again, we're publishing a type of error. And our message is coming from the backend, so we'll just say error.message. Perfect. Great, so that takes care of the tag view. Close that up. Let's go to our create.html and our create.js. And so actually in our HTML, we are not, I think by this point we kind of gave up on redundantly copying the error view code, which I can't blame, I can't blame us for not wanting to do that for every single view. So let's go to our create.js and let's see what's happening here. Well, so we already have our event aggregator, which is great. So we can just, again, within the catching, we can say this.ea.publish. And we are publishing Toast. And type will be error. And the message, again, from our backend. This is a situation where I think if you are creating or editing a post, it's nice to give a user a little bit of feedback when that's successful. So I might even encourage us to kind of do a success publish on the post creation. So the message we can give here is perhaps we'll just say post created. Give them a little exclamation mark to really throw some positivity their way. So let's actually just try that out. Let's make sure our post form looks good. So we'll log in as Jane Doe, and we'll do a new post and testing post. This is our new post. I'll associate Kafka and learning, and let's hit create post. Great, and so we have this response up in the upper right hand corner saying the post was created. So that's good. I can feel comfortable even though it's in front of my face here. That's nice to get just a little bit of feedback. The system feels a little more cohesive that way. So that's great. And now we can move on to edit, and we're going to do a very similar thing here in our edit.html. Again, we gave up already on showing it to the error to the user. So first in our activate, if we have some sort of error loading the existing post, we need to do some sort of message here. So we'll publish to Toast, and we will do a type of error. And our message will be post not found. And actually, we're not handling this super gracefully. I think we should just take this router, navigate to home, and say, yeah, if we have an error finding the correct post based on the slug, don't just show them an error message, but then also reroute them home so they see something they can interact with. And then finally, here in the edit post, we want to both handle the error case. So let's copy this and handle that error case, except we are going to use the error provided by the backend. And again, as we had done on our successful case for creating a post in our edit post success case, let's also publish a success and say post edited. Okay, let's see how that all works. I think it'll be cool to test out the functionality of not finding a post. So let's view this post. Or rather, let's first log in as Jane Doe. Let's go to my second post and edit the post. And so we have my second post edit. So if we make up some other slug that doesn't exist in our URL, so bad-slug, what we'd expect it to do is give us a toast saying it couldn't find the post, and then also it should shoot us back to the home page. And that's exactly what happened. We got a post not found toast here, and now we're at our home page. So that actually feels like some pretty good functionality. So let's keep going through our pages here in post. And yes, this is tedious, and that's what we deserve for not planning our errors. So we are no longer binding error to post lists. And in index.js, we will import the event aggregator from Aurelia Event Aggregator. And we'll make sure to inject it. And set it in the constructor. And then we don't need to worry about this error property here. And here we can just publish to toast. And the type will be error. And the message from our server or backend. Great. And we've already done our tag view. So now we just have view.html and view.js. If we open the view.html, let's take out this error display. If we go to our view.js, let's make sure to bring in the event aggregator. Use our dependency injection container and make sure to set it in the constructor. And then, so we will, if we do not find the post, which is going to be the case with this error, we should go ahead and publish. Let's publish to toast. And I guess I'm assuming that it's because we didn't find the post, but maybe there could be other messages from the server. So we should, of course, just say the type is error. And then for the message, we can just defer to our API call or our server. And one more thing we probably want to do in this instance, since we're refactoring how the scenario is handled, is we could bring in our Aurelia router and then redirect the user home in this case as well, rather than seeing a blank page. So let's just quickly do that. I think that's probably a good idea. So we can import the router from Aurelia router. Again, inject it and make sure we include it in our constructor and set it here. And so now we can say this .router.navigate to route, and the route we want to send them to is going to be the home route. So let's go back to our application and try this out. I can go to my third post and view it, but then I also want to try some non-existent slug. And press enter, and yeah, post not found in the upper right hand corner, and I'm sent home, so that's nice. Very good. So I believe that's it. Let me just go ahead and check some of these custom elements. The blog post custom element and blog post.js. Yeah, that's fine. There's no error message handling here. And okay, so maybe in just one more instance, we have our post form.js. I'm noticing here that we basically, if we have an error that occurs from trying to get all tags from our backend, which seems unlikely, but we need to handle that situation anyway. So let's just go ahead and bring in the event aggregator. And of course we will inject it. And one thing I haven't mentioned about dependency injection is we need to make sure that anything we inject here matches the constructor. That being said, it's only the order that really matters. So I could actually in my constructor just say EA, for example, or I don't know, event aggregate. I don't know what else I would call it, but it doesn't really matter. These don't need to match exactly, but they need to all be in the same order to signify the same thing. That being said, I personally like making them match. I think it makes sense to me, but that could just be me. So then I will say this.ea equals event aggregator, and finally I will use the event aggregator here to publish a toast, and we'll have a type of error, and the message again deferring to whatever's passed. And perfect. So as kind of, I don't know, frustrating as it can be sometimes to go back and refactor, it's always a good idea to do so. And now our application, if I go back over to it, is it's really handling errors a lot more gracefully now. And we don't have to worry about all that redundant HTML, which is really cool. And yeah, that's great. And of course, if we wanted to change the look of how our errors worked, well, the only place we would have to do that is in our app.html or app.js, basically in this app component. This is the only place where the actual display logic is for our toast. So that's really handy as well from a refactoring perspective in the future. So thanks for following along this time. And remember to factor in your errors at the beginning so you don't have to do what we just did and go back and refactor, although sometimes it is inevitable. But anyways, I think we're feeling pretty cool about how this is all starting to look.